This is Meet the Movie Press. It's July 26th, 2019. On the show this week, Marvel's San Diego Comic-Con reveals in Hall H, Rutger Hauer sadly passes, the TIFF rundown, and Zombieland Double Tap trailer chat. That's not easy to say. Plus, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood reviewed and the box office. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Meet the Movie Press.
This is Meet the Movie Press. My name is Simon Thompson. You can find me on social media at Showbiz Simon on Instagram and Twitter. Big news for the show. If you go to the Apple homepage for the podcast and you see their curated choice movie fanatics this year, you will actually click through and you will find Meet the Movie Press on there. We are officially kind of a big deal with those people at Apple who have clearly never heard the show. But we'll take it. Thank you so much. So I'm in the lead chair. We have two brilliant people on the panel this week. Scott Menzel, who you would know, and Alexander Robinson joining us. First of all, Alexander, who are you and where can we find you?
Well, I'm Alexander Robinson. You can find me on YouTube at The Real Mr. Robinson. And I'm also on all the other social medias, Twitter, real_Mr_Robinson, Instagram, The Real Mr. Robinson, and I'm on the Stardust app, Real Mr. Robinson.
And you are also a member of the LAOFCS, right?
Yes, I am. One of their newest members for this year.
Well, welcome to the crew. And Scott Menzel, welcome back.
Hello, Simon. How are you?
I'm
Alex,
good.
It's a pleasure to finally do a show with you.
It's nice to have him on here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Seriously.
I'm happy to be here.
We
Thanks for
were
inviting
all
me.
chatting at the get-together for the group a couple of months ago. And it was, is it a month?
It's
and a
been
half?
it's been a month already.
Yeah. And I instantly was like, we literally had the conference and said, we should get Alex on the show.
Yeah.
So, Alexander, welcome to the show. I told you I would call you Alex at least once. I'm so sorry I've done that already. All right. Alexander, welcome to the show. We have a lot to talk about. Scott, before we carry on, tell me where we can find you, please.
Sure, Twitter and Instagram at the other Scott M. You can go to weliveentertainment.com to see all my written reviews and interviews.
Fantastic. We have a lot to get through on the show. Obviously, I wasn't here last week, but Comic-Con continued.
Yes.
So we're going to pick up on some of the big news from that. We're also going to be taking calls on Meet the Movie Press today. You can always take part in the show if you're watching live in the chat. We would also like to take your calls. We're going to do this a very particular way. 3 topics we want to take your calls on today, and 3 topics only. Those subjects are the death of Rutger Hauer, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Marvel's San Diego Comic-Con Hall H review. So when we talk about those, feel free to call in. We would love to have your thoughts. We might take some more at the end of the show too. The number is 424-354 8302 424-354-8302. If you can't get to a phone, feel free to take part in the chat live on YouTube. We really appreciate it. Okay, we're going to spend the last 15 minutes of the show talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the new Tarantino movie. First of all, we're going to kick off with talking about San Diego Comic-Con. A lot happened, guys, in their Hall H reveal. Ryan, who is producing us today, was actually in Hall H.
I was at Comic-Con, you guys. I actually was right outside of Hall H.
That's
and I was
close enough.
just refreshing Twitter over and over again with Zia Anderson, host of Marvel Movie News, and we were just freaking out together each time something got announced.
Could you smell the excitement? Were you trying to guess what people were excited about?
I'm pretty sure that I was making a smell out of my body. That's how excited I was.
Okay, so what got the biggest cheer with your ear to the door?
Oh, it was Blade.
Yeah.
Hands down.
yeah.
It was Blade. That was the most surprising thing there.
A lot of people are excited about that. Guys, we're going to go through these one by one. First of all, let's talk about Doctor Strange. We are getting the Doctor Strange sequel. We all kind of knew that was going to happen. This one, though, is going to be slightly scarier, according to director Scott Derrickson. Alexander, on this, first of all, does it excite you to have a Doctor Strange sequel? And did you like it and want it to be scarier?
It excites me very much, because Doctor Strange is one of those Marvel movies that I liked when I first saw it, but then rewatching it again, I've grown a lot more appreciation.
Yeah.
And it's kind of up there in my, I don't know, top 10, but it's like close to the top tier of Marvel movies. I like it that much. And I'm just excited to see more of this character beyond the ensemble pieces, and to bring in Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff. I'm excited to see her character develop further. And in terms of it being scarier, I feel like there's only as far they'll go with it being a horror movie per se, but Doctor Strange can get really weird. I mean, the first movie itself was very, very trippy. So for the subtitle to be the Multiverse of Madness, I think they'll really go balls out in terms of what they can actually do to just make it more bizarre, weird horror than like legit scary horror.
Because Kevin Feige was very clear to say that it's going to be PG-13 level, so we know that it's going to have a certain level of intensity. But a lot of people think that these things have to be, NCR-17 or whatever. I don't think so, because if you look at some great horror movies over the years that have been, PG-13, a great example is Poltergeist, a hugely effective and very scary movie. That is actually that thing. So I think as long as you limit things like the fucks and the gratuitous on-screen violence, you can get some really scary stuff in there. I absolutely agree with you, Alexander. Scott, your thoughts on this?
I think they're taking a step out of the DC rulebook now.
Good point.
After the Shazam doing so well, and David F. Sandberg basically combining his elements of comedy with horror. And I think they saw how well that worked, and they were like, you know what? We can do this too. And I think you're going to see a lot more crossover now as WB and DC have started to take more chances with their movies. But in terms of Doctor Strange, I'm really excited about this.
Yep.
This is actually one of my favorite MCU films. Benedict Cumberbatch is fantastic as the character, and Scott Derrickson is a fantastic director. Letting him go back to his wheelhouse of what he knows best, I think, is a smart move.
Yeah.
And to kind of blur the lines between superhero and also horror, I think it's going to work marvels for this movie.
I mean, Scott Derrickson has done some really great movies.
Yeah.
Obviously, the one I think that probably pushed him to the forefront was Sinister.
Yes.
Yep.
And that genuinely, there are a handful of movies that I've seen at screenings where it has terrified me. That it's been like, Jesus, I feel like I've been put through the ringer. I think he's very good at getting adult, darker tones and putting them into something in a more acceptable thing. And I'll be honest with you, he understands this market. Scott has got a number of kids, and he shows them, he always talks about this on Twitter, he always shows them a wide variety of movies. Some of them you might think are perhaps too mature, but I think it breeds this kind of understanding of this material, and he knows what will work or he can tone down for this kind of teen market, but still have it appeal to grown men and women who will also get enough out of it and not feel like it's been dumbed down or they're getting a goosebumps. Marvel's goosebumps.
Right.
So that's cool. So do you think it's really good to bring back Scott as the director? We kind of knew this was going to happen, Alexander, but...
I think so, because one of the big issues I had with the MCU, as much as I love it, with some of their earlier movies, is that... especially with the first two Thor movies, is that they would switch directors. Sometimes it worked for the better, like going with the Russo brothers for the Captain America sequels, but it's always nice to get some sort of consistency.
Yeah.
And like we saw with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2, keeping James Gunn keeps that consistent tone with its characters and just the overall movie. So bringing Scott back, I think, is probably the best decision they can make in terms of Doctor Strange.
And in the terms you mentioned of Shazam and David Sandberg going and doing that, and now Marvel taking a bit of a leaf out of the DC book, how long do you think it's going to be, Scott, until they bring David over to Marvel and they get him to do a movie?
It might take a while, because
Right.
I think David's career has started over at Warner Brothers in general. I mean, they saw his short film on YouTube and they wound up making Lights Out and turning it into a feature. It did really well. And then giving him, an entry in the Conjuring universe, and now doing this. I think we're going to start seeing more of this, where it's going to be like the old days of Hollywood, where we're going to, especially with so many of these studios kind of merging, we're going to see a lot of directors staying with one side. I don't think the actors are going to be tied down like that, because there's just everyone wants to do everything. But the directors, I have a feeling they're going to stick with them.
Yeah, I think that's fair, actually. Okay, let's move on to Black Widow, because Black Widow is something else I want to talk about. We're going to see a bit of backstory for her. We're going to see a character fleshed out a bit more. We've seen a little bit. I talked about this on Collider Movie Talk yesterday. We are seeing, we had a bit of backstory before, but this is going to be younger and taking it on a different timeline. Black Widow is not my favorite character in the MCU. I think she's been horribly underserved by this, and it was really difficult to get me interested in a Black Widow movie. I like the direction that this is going, and I like the director, a really strong Australian female director. Alexander, your thoughts on Black Widow?
I kind of agree and disagree with you in some aspects,
cool.
because I thought, like, Black Widow has been one of their better characters, just like been as a supporting character. She's gotten a lot of development as a supporting character, and I always never wanted to see a Black Widow movie just because, like, well, what could you do at this point? Like, if I were to go back in time to when Iron Man 2 came out and tell people that she's going to be one of the big MVPs of the MCU, people would laugh at me because she didn't have much to do in Iron Man 2. But now that I'm hearing all, like, the details about Black Widow and just the cast and director, I'm like, okay. It's here. I'm going to see it. I'm on board. I'm excited.
Yeah.
But definitely there are other movies in Phase 4 that I'm more excited than Black Widow. But still, I'm looking forward to it.
Scott, this is obviously 10 years after the start of MCU, and sort of films in general and the MCU have changed. They now realize that sort of female-led superhero movies are viable. She doesn't have to just be part of an ensemble. But is it too late, because we're familiar with her for 10 years, that Black Widow gets her own movie? What are the pratfalls with that one?
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. It does feel, in my eyes, it feels a little bit too late. I don't know how much I personally care about this movie. I think they're just riding on the coattails of Wonder Woman and also, of course, Captain Marvel's success. Nor, like, in all fairness, I was more excited to hear, like you pointed out about the Doctor Strange movie, you know, like, seeing more of Scarlet Witch. Like, she was someone who was very underserved in most of the universe, and then the last two movies, she really got a lot. But I kind of feel like after Endgame, I was okay saying goodbye to this character. I feel like this is one of the rare times where I feel like this really does feel like a cash grab.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I had a conversation with Peyton Reed when it was Ant-Man and the Wasp came out about a year ago, and we were talking about all of the Marvel movies pretty much for the MCU have been successful since we started the official cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he said at some point someone's going to have a bum movie. There's going to be a movie that isn't going to land. Someone's going to be the new one at the bottom.
I don't think this is
going to be the one. No. But I think it'll be really interesting. Is there anything in the next cycle that you see being a bit of a difficult sell? Because I can't see one right now. Alexander.
I mean, if I had to pick one, I would say the Eternals, just because I've never heard of the Eternals within the Marvel lore. Like, with Guardians of the Galaxy, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I know Guardians of the Galaxy by name.
Yeah.
I saw them in the Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon, but I don't know their backstory that much. But, I mean, with 23 movies in, and making Guardians of the Galaxy work, I think Marvel can make the Eternals work. But if there was anything in that Phase 4 lineup that's going to be a hard sell, it would probably be the Eternals.
I'm kind of the same on that, but with Guardians of the Galaxy, when that came out, I thought that movie was a horrible idea.
Too.
A horrible idea. I didn't know anything about the characters. I didn't care about it. And I'll tell you what, I know people that worked on that movie with James, and even when they started making that movie, they were like, this is going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be genius and land well, or it's going to be a really expensive mistake. So even the people involved in it weren't convinced. So I can understand. Do we have we're going to go to the chat in just a second, but do we have too many of these ensemble movies, or do we need them as, like, you know, sort of sorbet or benchmarks, edit points in a series?
You want
Either of you can take that one.
I think no, because from what I understand, the Eternals is more. It's kind of in the vein of the X-Men, where it's like they're already set as an ensemble.
Yeah.
It's not like with the Avengers, where you take certain pieces and just kind of mix them together. I mean, for anyone in the chat who knows the Eternals in the comics, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the impression I get. Like, the Eternals is probably...
Alexander, they will.
I
Don't
know.
worry, they will.
I know, it's the internet. I'm prepped for it. But I feel like the Eternals is, like, from what we understand, it's required to be an ensemble piece and not, like, have each of these characters be solo, have their own solo movies.
Yeah. No, I think it'll be interesting to see if any do come out of that for Cycle 5, that we start to see some of those get their own movies. We'll see.
I think it's interesting because I think in terms of their... I'm sure we're going to talk about this, but I feel like in terms of the film lineup, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
The programming if we can shift to the Disney Plus,
Yeah.
that's a little bit more wonky. I don't feel like the same level of hype that anyone felt for those
There
TV
were
shows.
several there that I was like, oh, I'm not going to watch those.
Yes.
Not because there's anything wrong with them, purely from time, and I didn't care enough about a number of them, unless they really have something different to say, or aesthetic, or I need to see them to understand the MCU. But the MCU, as rich as it is, I think I can kind of work out what I might have missed.
I love, though, how they did the Blade thing.
Yeah.
They did the same thing with Captain Marvel, if you remember.
They did.
Like literally at the
I thought
end
exactly
of the
the same thing.
at the end of the panel. Oh, here comes Brie. Hey, everybody, I'm here.
Yeah.
Literally the same exact thing.
Trolls.
But I think they're going to continue this progress for the movies. I think Disney Plus, it's the same as any streaming service at this point. I think they're hoping that these are going to work.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to.
Well, we'll get to that probably more the Disney Plus stuff at another time, because there's so much stuff to cover.
I know.
And I just need to run through the chat, but it's a really valid point, actually. Zeno Hour, I'm glad you're letting Scott Derrickson, or not us, I mean they are, letting Scott Derrickson flex his horror chops for Doctor Strange. Ricky Davila, all these people, hello, welcome to you in the chat. A lot of you are regulars. There's a couple of new people in there today. Glad to see them try and do something horror. Derrickson directed one of my favourite horror movies from the decade, Sinister. Yeah, absolutely. We already mentioned that one. Carney Egan, who's the character behind Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch? I don't know. Jenna James agreeing with Ricky. Ricky, however, when the first one was coming out, everybody kept saying there's a lot of horror elements to it, and that didn't seem to be the case at all. No, I think that you're absolutely right in that. I think there was a lot of sort of water testing with that to see exactly what they could do and how audiences would respond, because I know a lot of people, when Doctor Strange came out, it was one of the characters that they didn't feel any particular affinity to and weren't particularly excited about, but when they saw the movie they actually came on board and, like you, watched it a number of times. Some people have really long names in here. Bartholomew O'Mac Dulahimley de Connaught. I don't know what that is about. I love the recent title, The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then Bigfoot. Yeah, that was a great movie. Sometimes I like really odd movie titles. That is obviously in reference to the longer title of Doctor Strange. Zafira is in the chat today. I think David said he was taking a break from doing comic book movies for a bit after Shazam. He needs a breather. Yeah. That's obviously David who directed Shazam. And Ricky saying, really don't see the need either for a Black Widow film. Maybe if it was released right before Endgame, it would have had more impact, but it doesn't do anything for me at this point. It is one of the movies where I'm kind of like, okay, I'm just going to sit on this for now and see what I see coming out of it. The response to the footage in Hall H was very strong, which does bode well. But also, bear in mind, that is a room. It is Hall H with a room full of Marvel fans.
Yeah.
So that's like taking steak eaters to a steak restaurant and going, well, that dinner was delicious.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get the same response from vegans.
Yeah.
Okay, Blade. I finally want to talk about this, and then we're going to move on from San Diego Comic-Con, their Marvel Hall H reveals. Blade, as you mentioned, Scott, pulled out right at the end, got a phenomenal response. Mahershala Ali is going to be Blade, a decision that went down really well. He went to Kevin and said, I want to be Blade. Kevin was like, yeah, sure. Okay, cool. Let's do this. Alexander, first of all, very quickly, your thoughts on that. It was a surprise for many people.
It was, because, prior to Hall H and Comic-Con in general, we heard snippets about the Eternals, sequels to Doctor Strange, even stuff that wasn't announced there, like sequels to Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and the Fantastic Four. Blade came out of nowhere. Like, we didn't hear anything about Blade. The most we heard were rumors about them bringing Wesley Snipes back, but
I think we all knew that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
I think Wesley Snipes knew that wasn't going to happen.
True. After Spider-Man Far From Home, spoilers for those who still haven't seen it, when they brought J.K. Simmons back as J. Jonah Jameson, I think people had that sliver of hope, but you know what? I'm okay with Mahershala Ali. Two-time Academy Award winner. He's a fantastic actor. He can just change himself in so many roles. He's got it down.
Yeah, no, I agree. Scott?
He saved True Detective, too, in Season 3, after that terrible Season 2.
I did not see it, Season 3.
He's one of those actors right now that I think I'm on board to see anything that he touches. That's just the way I feel about him. He's proven in such a short period of time that he has the ability to pretty much take on any role. and give it his own sort of gravitas. Like he really, really like make it his own. And that's all I really have to say about it. I'm excited that they're finally doing a Blade movie that I think people are going to care about. You know, like as much as people are like, oh, the Wesley Snipes one, it's like that movie wasn't that good, and neither were any of the sequels. Sorry.
Well, do you know, I like the sequels, and I think the third one is massively underappreciated. Blade Trinity.
The Ryan Reynolds one.
Ryan Reynolds one. It's not a great movie, and it's not the best of the three.
Yeah.
But I think that gets an unfair amount of shit thrown at it. But we're not going to see Blade until the next cycle of movies, so it's going to be a little while. We all know that Mahershala's sort of schedule is pretty busy.
Yeah.
Although it's funny, people made a point. It's like, oh, after doing an Oscar-winning movie, he wants to do this. I'm like,
who doesn't?
I mean, but I mean, it's like you've got to make some movie after. You can't just make Oscar potential stuff. And it's like he wants to have fun when he goes to work. This is going to be fun, so that's cool. I just want to go back to something. I commented on the difficulty of someone's name, and they said it was mildly racist because I'm British. No, it is a very difficult name to say, and no, it's not racist at all. It's a very long name, and it's very difficult to say. So no racism intended. But yeah, okay, so let's move on from this. Scott, I want you to take the lead on this, or you've offered to take the lead on this, rather.
Sure.
Tiff, the lineup. You're going to be going to Toronto this year.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So a lot of people reacted to this, probably more favorably than I've seen a lineup for a festival across the board in the last 12 months. Tell me what's coming up and tell me why you think that is.
Okay, so some backstory on TIFF. Last year, they had a big shakeup. One of the guys who was a programmer there for a very long time, he was responsible for the TIFF Bell light box, which is a huge disaster if you go through the history of that. He wanted millions and millions of dollars to invest in it, thought like he wanted to make it like a center for film. And the reality is most people, when they come to Toronto, to the Toronto International Film Festival, they come once a year. And even though there is a love of cinema in the city, that theater doesn't get full very often.
Yeah.
And it's been a huge no-no for the city. It's caused a lot of problems, caused a lot of financial issues for the festival. So he stepped down. I think his name was Piers Morgan. He stepped down last year. Okay. And it was like all the things, there was all these, videos and stuff about it. And over the last couple of years, I feel like the lineup for the Toronto International Film Festival has been very hit or miss.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think this reaction to the festival says two things. The first thing that it says is the new programmer who joined the team, who is a woman who's basically someone who Cameron Bailey, the other guy who's been at TIFF for a while and is still there, really pushed for a very long time, for there to be this change in viewpoint. So I think that's something where they both kind of came up with this lineup and they said, you know what, we're going to prove right now that we're going to do a better job. So that's part of their big reveal here. The other thing that's a big reveal is the fact that the movies so far this year are so bad that everyone are hoping that award season is going to be really great. And this lineup, this stole the thunder from Venice. It killed a lot of my hope for Telluride, honestly, too.
Venice came out.
Yeah.
It's like it never happened.
I know.
It's like Thanos clicked. And it was like, what the fuck happened to Venice?
Yeah. And which is weird because for those who don't know film festivals, basically what happens is Venice starts right before Telluride. Telluride kicks in for Labor Day weekend, and then it goes into Toronto.
Yeah.
And Venice is really like the Kickstarter. And, First Man premiered there last year, and then the year before, 3 Billboards, and they really start the conversation, and then they kind of go into Telluride, and then they go into Toronto. So for TIFF to come out of the gate this strong, this says a lot. But some of the movies that they have world premieres for, I think they're gonna be the festival to go to this year. If you don't have tickets, you should get them now and get the plane ticket. Smartly enough, Sony tied together the Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood trailer one day before they announced the world premiere here, which I think was great.
That trailer got so much love online. You saw it, right, Alexander?
I did, yes. It's weird.
Did it give you the feels, as they say? All the feels?
It did. I'm curious how it's going to play out, considering that just last year we had Won't You Be My Neighbor. And, I mean, if the best possible scenario is that it's a great double feature.
I was going to say, I think a lot of people perhaps overlooked that because it was a documentary. You don't get the wide release that you do, even though it got a lot of talk. I think it will make a lot of people go back and go, oh, there was a documentary on this, and rediscover that. It's a great documentary.
Oh, yeah,
it's
fantastic.
It's a great documentary.
Still so sad it got overlooked at the Oscars. I can't even believe it didn't get a nomination.
I know.
I don't even...
I know. So what else is up TIFF for you?
So, I mean, there's so many good movies, but I think the big takeaway that I wanted to point out was how many world premieres there are. So a lot of people get this confused as well. There's North American premieres, there's Canadian premieres, and the big deal is the world premiere, because that means you're the only festival that's going to show that. Warner Brothers must have a huge leap of faith in this festival this year, because not only are they giving the world premiere of The Goldfinch, but they're also giving the world premiere of Just Mercy, which is a film that I know most people don't know what this is, but it's with Michael B. Jordan and Brie Larson. And it's the short-term 12 director.
Oh, I think I've heard of it.
Yeah. And this was one where they were going to maybe push and do like a January release.
Yeah.
They did some testing, and it like apparently turned out that the testing is really good.
Oscar.
And now they're going to push it. So Warner Brothers, and then they of course have the North American premiere of Joker.
Yeah.
So you have 3 Warner Brother titles going into the Oscar race, 2 of which having their world premiere here, 1 premiering at Venice and then coming here right afterwards.
Maybe they all exist in the same universe.
Maybe.
They're doing. I'm
Maybe.
kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, that again, like you, Alexander. The movie there, the Brie Larson movie, is a movie that I was not aware of.
Right.
And I'm actually I really like it when movies come up that I'm not sick of hearing about.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we hear about so many movies. I mean, Joker, obviously, you mentioned is going to be there. I'm really, really looking forward to the Joker.
I'm skeptical about that. I hate to be the odd man out, but
That's okay.
Like, for me with Joker, I just think back to Venom, because it's like, how are you going to do...
I try not to.
How are you going to do a villain movie without, like, the hero that the villain's pretty much dependent on? But I will admit, the trailers do look really good.
Yeah.
So... Hey, you know what? Anything could happen. I've seen a lot of... We've all seen lots of movies with terrible trailers or trailers that just make you go, but the movies end up being amazing.
And I keep bringing up Marwin, we see a lot of trailers where we're like, shit, that's going to be awards gold, and it turns out to be absolutely awful. Scott, any more from you?
I mean, I just wanted to say that one of the interesting things that me and Ashley actually predicted was the Bad Education world premiere here, which is the movie, last year, Hugh Jackman had a movie called The Front Runner, which nobody saw, which premiered at Telluride and then went on to TIFF. This year, he has Bad Education, which anyone who doesn't know this, Hugh Jackman is on a world tour right now, going around performing and basically doing everything that he loves. And the fact that he took a gap, and you can look at his schedule, and that's how we figured it out. We looked at his tour schedule, and we're like, there's a weird gap here right around festival time. So we knew that he was going to have something that was going to come out, and we found out that Bad Education is actually going to also have its world premiere there. This is from the director of Thoroughbreds, another movie which I felt was very under the radar last year. But was really weird and different. I'm looking forward to this one as well. And there's a new Beanie Feldstein movie too. I forgot the title of it, but I'm really excited for her because she's just proving to be like this massive star in the making.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for that.
No, 100%. I think it's really good. Have you got any more thoughts on Toronto? Is it a festival that you're particularly excited about every year? And then we'll move on.
Not particularly. Not that I have any disinterest in Toronto. It's just I focus more on like Sundance or Cannes. I'm always back and forth how you pronounce it. So yeah, I'm just don't have much input on Toronto, the International Film Festival itself. But so I have nothing else to add.
That's totally fine. And there are so many festivals that happen around the world that appear to have, a particular limited amount of interest. Like London Film Festival was always one. When you're in London, it's like the world revolves around this thing. And then when you leave London, you're like, oh, okay, it doesn't really have that much impact internationally with your average person.
Well,
Toronto is one of those that has kind of crept up in the last couple of years, where I think Cannes has kind of gone down a bit.
Okay, I was just going to say, right now, like, as someone, this is my specialty, if you can't tell at this point, I love going to film festivals, and over the last couple of years, I've seen this dramatic shift in the dominance. The 1 year that I missed Telluride and then I went the year after was the year that like La La Land went there and Moonlight went there, and like it was really, Telluride was the festival to go to.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to start going to Telluride. And as much as I love Telluride because of how laid back it is, and you really get like, you feel like you have this really exclusive feel to it.
Yeah.
You do feel like an elitist when you go there, because it's like, it's in a really, segregated area. Like,
it's kind of like the anal film.
Yeah. But then, over the last couple of years...
Don't Google that, by the way.
Toronto has kind of noticed that, there was all these issues within the industry. They started that new incentive last year with getting more voices there. And by Pierce stepping down, I think them knowing what they had to do with this, they're now one of the most important festivals of the year.
And I think the average person sees it as certainly that festivals have a perceived sort of this anality.
Yes.
It's like the tightly buttoned down, the hoity-toity, sniffy, fancy pants film people who are like, oh, look at me, and a lot of it isn't that. Case. I mean, it's regular. There is a lot of media that go to these, and there are the but you also get the average Joe and people who like to dip into movies, or someone who's predominantly consumed mainstream movies and goes like, do you know what? Because of X or Y factor, I'm going to dip my toe in. And I'm going to see a movie at a festival. First time I went to a festival, I was intimidated as fuck.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm an idiot. I don't know anything. But everybody in there, was from different, and it's not as snooty as you might think it is. It's really worth doing. A couple of comments in the chat on stuff that we discussed to do with TIFF. Thank you for that. That was a really good, very comprehensive evaluation there. Some really good movies. Kame Egan, I bawled like a fucking baby when I saw The Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood trailer. The 5-year-old in me was screaming with happiness. You have a 5-year-old inside you? And Tom Hanks rocks it as Mr. Rogers. Tom Hanks pretty much rocks everything. I'm kind of jealous of his talent. God damn you.
Yeah. He's a national treasure.
Oh, absolutely. He was actually, when he dies, they're going to put him in the Smithsonian. Ricky DeVille is saying, TIFF seems amazing, but every year when I look at prices, it's so expensive if you're not pressed, which is why I try to do Telluride each year, even though this year's lineup sucks. Anthony Manzano, Simon, can you please put the phone number in the chat, please? We're mentioning that again at some point. Thank you. Janet James, I mean, the shows acknowledge them, but the movies don't really do much to reference the shows with, this is going back to Marvel. I'll pass on from that one. And let's have a look. Is Queen and Slim debuting at TIFF? This is from Zeno Hour.
Not yet.
Not yet.
There's no announcement of that yet. But someone mentioned. I think it was another comment. But one of the things that I think people need to take into consideration is we've seen something at the beginning of this year with Sundance.
Yeah.
There was all these movies that came out of there, like The Late Night, where there was all this buzz, and then it did nothing.
Yeah.
But when you have something now that already has buzz, like Joker, I think it was such a smart move for WB to put this there. I mean, just like Ford and Ferrari is also going to be there.
Yeah.
So
that's
smart.
a movie that a lot of people are not talking about, but I think that's going to gather a little bit more, momentum as it.
Traction.
Zeno, I was saying, I'm curious what the reaction to Joker will be. I think a lot of people are already acting like it's a guaranteed Oscar movie. We shall see. We shall see. I'm really, really interested in that. And also, let's remember, and this happens a lot. There are people within the press who go to these events, and because they're going to see this movie first, and they're seeing it at a festival, and they know the PRs are going to be clamoring for their reaction to it, and they want to get on the screen as of the DVDs or the posters or whatever. It often happens where people see movies in an environment, and I think everybody's been guilty at this point, where you don't take a beat, and your first reaction is like, best movie ever, best movie of the year, blah 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 blah. So always take always take those reactions with a pinch of salt. Always take them a little bit skeptically, because a lot of times these people have gone back and reviewed the movie at another point and gone, do you know what? A little bit, actually, it's not quite as good. A favorite of mine is Empire with Phantom Menace. They gave that movie a 5-star, and then a couple of years later they pulled back and it was like, actually, it wasn't that great. We saw it with the most recent Blair Witch movie, where that suddenly was revealed at Comic-Con. People saw that, it was like the greatest horror movie ever. Then they watched it again, they were like, it's actually not that good. And it actually wasn't a great movie. So do always take these reactions with a little bit of salt. We've got 10 minutes before we go and talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There are 3 things I want to get in there. So very quickly, first of all, I want to talk about Zombieland, the Double Tap trailer. Got a lot of buzz this week. Thank you for your stuff on both Marvel and TIFF so far. Really, really great stuff. Zombieland Double Tap trailer. Alexander, I'm going to come to you on this first of all. 10 years after Zombieland. 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
Okay. Your reaction to this trailer yesterday?
Well, I didn't see it until I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it looks good. I loved the first Zombieland. I think it's probably the funniest comedy of that year, at least for me.
Yeah.
Woody Harrelson's just such a great character, and like the chemistry he has with Jesse Eisenberg is just fantastic. Like, they're 2 polar opposites, work so well together. Emma Stone and Abigail Breslin are great together. The whole group is just great. I had problems with the ending, but still a really fun movie. This trailer looks interesting. I mean, because 10 years go by, I don't know if they can hit lightning in a bottle twice, especially since it seems like they're bringing in the parallel group.
Yeah. Which I would have kept quiet.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would have kept that reveal for the movie, but
I mean, that's Sony's marketing team.
yeah. So I thought that was a little bit jumping the shark on that one. Scott, your thoughts on this?
I just want to say that I think Zoe Deutsch is going to be the MVP. I just get it from her little snippets in the trailer, like, oh, I'm supposed to wear my seatbelt, and she just flies through. She's totally playing up that dumb blonde moment, and I can't get enough of it.
Which you gotta wonder, how has she survived this long in the zombie apocalypse?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. But I'm obviously the relationship with her and Jesse Eisenberg, I think, is going to be really interesting and fun. But I'm really looking to see the interplay between her and the other female characters, Abigail Breslin and Emma Stone. I'm really, really looking for. I mean, we know from the trailer that Abigail goes off and does some of her own thing.
Yeah.
But I genuinely am I want to see, especially with Emma Stone.
Yeah.
The cutting remarks and the sort of jazzing between the two of them. I'm really, really looking forward to that. I'll be honest with you. I didn't think we were going to see this movie. It has been talked about so long.
I didn't think so either.
I just didn't think it was going to. And there was talk of the TV show, and I thought, okay, great. It's not going to have the original people in. It's going to be a TV show. It'll do 1 season and then get axed, and it'll be lovely to have around. Thank you for coming. Shove it out the door. I honestly didn't think this was going to come. I'm not entirely sold on it yet. I enjoyed the trailer. But I want to see the final movie. I'm just glad there's not all the jokes in the first trailer. So when you see the movie, it's like, rather than, So yeah, I mean, I'm okay with this. I'm interested. When you discovered Zombieland, did you see it in movie theaters or did you see it on a home entertainment?
I saw it in theaters.
Right.
I read, I didn't know anything about this movie coming out, and then I saw some reviews, read some reviews. I'm like, you know what? I kind of want to see this, and it ended up being a huge surprise for me.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of people who didn't see it in theaters and discovered it after, and they appear to be a big part of this momentum for bringing this back to the big screen. Hopefully they'll turn out. We see a lot of times where people are like, give me a sequel, give me a sequel.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go and see it.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait for streaming. We see a lot of that, so we'll see what happens. But I'm pretty psyched about that.
Or when everyone was talking about the Chips movie, and then no one saw it.
Nobody saw it. I actually referenced the Chips movie recently, and someone was like, there was a Chips movie? Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on from that. Oh, anybody talking in the chat about this? No, we'll move on from that. Oh, yeah, no, actually, Zeno Aries. Simon, why didn't Sony have a Zombieland 2 panel at San Diego Comic-Con if the trailer was ready? I think probably because they just didn't really have enough there, and they didn't want to jump the gun on it. I mean, because there weren't that many movies there this year, but I think they realized that Marvel was going to steal the lion's share of press. A lot of other people just didn't have movies that would fit at Comic-Con. This one would have fit, but I think it would have just got a little bit lost.
I just want to say real quick, I just have to say, if you remember on the show, if you watched the show last week, we talked a little bit about this, is that there were studios that were not at Comic-Con last year that stole the thunder from stuff that was at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And I think that's what studios are learning. They don't have to be there. Marvel's just there because of, I hate to say this, but ego. Like, they know that everything they're going to reveal, no matter where, they can stand on the street in Burbank right now and reveal something, and it'll get all news. So, like, them going there, it's no sweat off their back because they know it's going to, like, help promote their movies. The other studios, it's more of a risk.
Panel, I'm not surprised they didn't have. I am surprised they didn't have an activation, though. I think an activation would have actually at Comic-Con would have been the right way to go with this, but there we go. Okay, let's talk about Rutger Hauer's passing. Came suddenly this week. Obviously, people don't plan their deaths. 75, so not old, but not too young. But his resume of work, I think, is often overlooked. I mean, I remember when I said this on the show before, when I saw Blade Runner, he was a standout moment for me. I wasn't a massive fan of the movie, but he always stuck with me. I was a massive fan of his action stuff in the 80s, so movies like Blind Fury, Wanted Dead or Alive. I loved him in The Hitcher. His movies were I used a lot of his movies to get into sort of interesting genre movies. Ladyhawk was another one where it was kind of, I'd see that and go, okay, I like this kind of thing, I'm going to explore this a bit more. So, I mean, I was very, very sad when I heard that he'd passed this week. Everybody, though, seems to have different favourite Rutger Hauer movies and different connections. Alexander, you on this?
I mean, to go back what you said about his work, his like filmography being underlooked, I think I'm a prime example of that because I really only know him from Blade Runner, and he's great in that role. And just before coming here, I was like, what else has he been in? Because I feel like I've seen him. Oh, he had a minor role in Batman Begins. Huh?
Yep.
And I just haven't seen anything else with him in it. But this, like, 75, you said?
Yeah, 75, yeah.
75, that's kind of sudden.
Yeah, no, it was, nobody was kind of expecting it. Nobody knew that he was sort of ill or anything. But I mean, like you say, I think one positive of things like this when people die is the fact that people like yourself who perhaps don't know the back catalogue of these people, they go, oh, I liked him from this, I'm going to explore some of his other movies. Another one, a favourite of mine that he did, because he did a lot of sort of straight to DVD or straight to video or low end big screen stuff. Another of my favourites of his was from '94, Surviving the Game, which is very much like Hard Target. It's that kind of like chasing people and hunting down people. Rutger Hauer's resume is really well, and he did some really great dramatic work as well. Scott on this.
It's pretty amazing, I think this goes to show you the problem in some ways of Hollywood.
Yeah.
You really become known for like one particular role.
Yeah.
And, just going through how many movies I'm just looking as you guys were talking of how many roles he's been in, but every single headline that I saw this week, it's like Blade Runner was the only thing he was ever in.
I know.
And it's funny that, you mentioned really obscure movies. One of the ones that I saw, I think it was at South by Southwest, was Hobo with a Shotgun.
Yeah, great
movie.
movie.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Canadian movie.
Yeah. And
Bone Daddy was another one
Yeah.
that when I think it was certainly in the UK, I think it was maybe got theatrical here in America, but in the UK it went straight to DVD or straight to VHS. That is a great thriller.
Yeah.
That is a great kind of Seven-esque kind of thing. Bone Daddy, great thriller.
Yeah.
Loved it. But a lot of people didn't discover his movies. But it's just kind of sad that sometimes people like Rutger Hauer, who are great actors and well-loved, have to die for people to really appreciate what they've given us. There's more of an urgency to discover that. And I think that's a real shame. But I mean, he's, to be honest with you, to work so long in the industry, in Hollywood, and to continue to work into your 70s and to leave such a great resume of work is amazing. A lot of people chatting about this. Rutger Hauer was an underappreciated legend, always brought his A game regardless of the material. Bartholomew saying very sad. Jenna James, I knew him from Batman and True Blood. The realization that Mr. Hauer's passing instilled in me is Harrison Ford is around his age. Crazy to imagine these guys are old now. It is. They don't seem, they're old, but they don't seem old. They seem, well, I mean, I'm old too. Acacio G saying, hey, Acacio, good to see you. Saying it again, Blind Fury. Blind Fury, amazing. Remember seeing that in theatres in the UK. Zeno Hour, underrated Rutger Hauer films, Blind Fury and Split Second. Split Second is another cracker. Okay, before we're going to talk about Once Upon a Time in America, we're going to take the end of the show to talk about that. You are going to take the lead on this, Alexander. Halloween Horror Nights at Universal.
Yes.
2 big announcements in the last week. Ghostbusters last week. That's going to be an amazing maze. And Killer Clown Maze at Universal Studios Hollywood and Orlando. You take the lead on this.
Yes, so Ghostbusters is coming to Universal Studios Hollywood for the first time as a maze.
Yeah.
And it'll be returning to Universal Studios Florida after Ghostbusters Spooktacular, which I never saw when I was in Florida because it was long gone by then. But I'm excited for this because Ghostbusters is it is my favorite comedy of all time. I absolutely love it. I just think it's a brilliant movie all around. So I'm very curious what they're going to do with it as a maze, because we talked about this before the show. There's just so much to play with Ghostbusters that it could end up being more weird and bizarre than actually scary. Because one of my wonders is, am I just going to laugh throughout this whole maze? Because Ghostbusters just makes me laugh at even the most subtle thing.
Yeah.
I can't help but laugh at it. And then I honestly don't have much else to say about Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Have you seen the movie?
That's the reason why.
Okay, dude, you need to see this movie. I hadn't watched it. I hadn't watched it from the 80s when I hired it, and I watched it, and I knew I loved it, but I hadn't remembered why. And I watched it again recently. It's available on Amazon Prime if you want to watch it for free. Seriously, it is fucking weird, but it is really cool. And I know last year they did this. Michael and the team in Orlando did this as a maze, and it went down really, really well. The audience reactions were great, and I'm super psyched. I was hoping it would come to Hollywood this year, and it has done. There's another maze that's going to be announced this year, which is coming obviously before the event, which kicks off on September the 12th this year. Super psyched about this. Are you excited by these mazes?
I really am. I mean, I recently spoke to Gary Doberman about how I'm surprised they haven't taken the Conjuring universe yet and put it into a maze. And I said maybe with Annabelle, that'll be one of them.
They did it at the Warner Brothers thing last year.
That's right. That's what I told them.
That's as much as they take.
I know, but I can see it becoming a thing at Universal Horror Nights because I just feel like it's so... I don't know. It's just the right place to do it. But I also think what's interesting about Universal Horror Nights is how successful this has become. That it's actually overshadowed the theme park. You know, they did the Harry Potter thing, and it was such a big deal when it opened, and like that it fizzled out very quickly, and then they're like, but now it's the Dark Castle and stuff like that. And now they're doing Jurassic World, of course, which you've been on. Have you been on that?
4 times.
Yeah. Is it amazing?
It's awesome.
I was actually at the grand opening of that. I wrote it a couple of weeks ago, and I was at the grand opening this week. So there's a piece, 2 pieces up on Forbes about that from a technical side, and also from interviews with Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. But
I'm just saying, like, it's amazing. Like, they keep doing all this stuff. And all they have to do with Horror Nights is just announce one maze, and everyone's like, I'm in. And like, this has the potential, and I know they usually always sell out, and that's also something that I feel like you don't hear that often with theme parks, is that something sells out.
Obsessed with horror, are you excited for Killer Clowns from Outer Space and Ghostbusters Halloween Horror Night, Simon? Yes, I am. I'm very much looking forward to the opening night on September the 12th. Tickets are available now. Do you have something more to say on this, Alexander? You just sounded like you wanted to...
I will say one downside to this year, I think it's been confirmed that because of the amount of mazes they're going to be having, they're going to skip Terror Tram this year, which...
I'm okay with that.
I mean, for me, when they brought Halloween Horror Nights back in, I think it was 2006. Good Lord, the notion or the novelty of getting to walk on the World sets or near the Psycho House was what sold me to go to Halloween Horror Nights, and it's what sold me to go every year. Right?
Yeah.
So the fact that we're not getting this year, I mean, we get more mazes as a plus, but I'm a little disappointed, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's funny. Terror Tram, I think, has been something that some people have really looked forward to, and I know people who've got on the tram and they've gone, "Oh, it's not like the regular tram, so we have to get off and walk." Fuck that. I'm going to stay on the tram and I'm going to go back and do another maze.
Yeah.
So I do know there are some people who would not want to do that. And I'll be honest with you, after I've had a couple of beers, I don't really want to walk around. I'm doing a lot of walking at Halloween Horror Nights as it is. But I know a lot of people will be disappointed. But I mean, I think there is so much at Halloween Horror Nights this year, and they're really, really pushing the boat out. I'm very lucky to have a very good relationship with the team at Universal. I'm by no means a shill, but they trust me with certain information. I'm very lucky to have that.
You work with Lindsay over there?
I work with, Lindsay's one of the people.
She's
Lindsay,
fantastic.
formerly of Paramount. Lindsay's tremendous.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, seriously, I think Universal are really at the top of their game when it comes to Halloween Horror Nights. And John Murdy, who runs this event and creates this event every year along with Michael in Orlando, seriously, John is a god, and he spends more than a year on each maze. For next year, he's already working on it. We had conversations about mazes that he's looking at 2 years in advance. He has a long list of classic things that he wants to bring up. John lives, eats, breathes, shits Halloween. Seriously, this guy is devoted. He doesn't put anything out there that he thinks people won't like. He takes it very seriously. And with Stranger Things leading it, Ghostbusters this year as well, Killer Clowns, and other stuff still to be announced. Seriously good gig. But talking about tickets, if you happen to be in Los Angeles this weekend, you're going to need a bigger boat. The movie quiz that's been running in London for 14 years is coming to Los Angeles. We did one in December. It went very well. We had a very good response. We've been delayed in bringing it back. The first one is in Los Angeles this Saturday at 2 o'clock at the 3 Clubs on Vine, at the junction there with just below Hollywood, just below the arc light, just south of the arc light there on Vine. It's a 2-hour quiz. It's more like a game show projected onto a screen. Very high. I mean, Scott, it sounds like I'm selling this. Yeah. But dude, you've done this.
It's a ton of fun. You should definitely check it out. And what I loved about it was you can kind of be a movie lover from like the early days. You can be a current movie lover. There's a lot for everyone there. Yeah. It doesn't just have to be like you have to know now or you just have to know the classics. It's a nice mix of everything from like the classics to like stuff now to some of the stuff in the 70s. And it's a lot of weird stuff too. Like there may be a snippet of a song that was used in a certain movie. It's a lot of fun. And I think we got really into it last year.
Really into it.
And it was a blast. So you should definitely check it out if you can.
Tickets at www.film-quiz.com. It's 2 o'clock tomorrow at the 3 Clubs in Los Angeles. Get your tickets now. Okay, we're going to talk on to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Box office this week. It's going to be number 1 by the looks of it. It's going to bring in some serious ticket sales. Okay, you guys, I want to take the lead on this one. I'll give my thoughts at the end before we wrap the show. Alexander, first of all, your thoughts on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Well, I just saw the movie last night.
Super fresh.
Yes. I have kind of a weird relationship with Quentin Tarantino's last couple movies. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is kind of that same thing, where it's like I love parts of the movies, and then other parts I'm just kind of like, and there's some parts that I just absolutely downright despise. I'm probably going to put myself out there. I'm one of the few people that absolutely hates Django Unchained. I cannot stand that movie for the life of me. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like the first half of it, I think is fantastic. It's the Quentin Tarantino that I love from Pulp Fiction, the Quentin Tarantino that writes this great dialogue, has great performances from Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. The second half of the movie feels more self-indulgent and just more kind of like lazy. And I mean, it wasn't awful, but I just wasn't digging it that much. And then the ending, I won't say it ruined the movie for me, but it's the Tarantino that I absolutely hate, where he just goes balls to the wall, like with his violence, to the points where it's just like so horrifying. And I don't want to say anything that's like anything spoilerific, but the stuff that happens to people that kind of deserve it, but they drag it out for so long. And it really bugs me when people are watching this and laughing at it. I'm like, this is not really a laughing scenario. Like I can let go Marvin getting shot in the face in Pulp Fiction, but this is almost like Saw.
I've got some similar thoughts on that, Scott.
Oh boy, I get to be the odd man out this week.
Nice, cool.
In the other direction for once. I really enjoyed this movie, guys. I don't know what to say. I don't know.
And that's fine.
Well, no, the weird thing is, I'm going to be honest about this. I didn't wind up going to see the movie on Monday, which is where pretty much most people went to see this film. And I guess as usual, I go to Twitter afterwards, always after a screening, because now I'm programmed to do so, to kind of see the reactions. And I feel like the reactions were so all over the place. People are like, this is the best Tarantino movie ever. This is horseshit. What the fuck was I watching? The word self-indulgent, like you came up with, like you said, there's just so much that I hear about this film. So I went in there, and my wife, Ashley, usually comes with me to the screenings. After she saw these reactions, she says, you know what, I'm going to sit back. I'm not going to see this one. She's like, you go see it. If it's good, maybe I'll go revisit it. I went to the theater. I expected to kind of come out of it and be like, it's fine. But it won me over. And I don't know, I can't explain why, because I have problems, like you said, with it. Like I can't stand that there's elements of so much Tarantino that it's almost irritating. Like the fact that he has that fetish for feet that is just in the movie. Like there's so many characters
There's
that are bare.
There's one scene where it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Where you're like,
yeah, like it's just everyone's barefoot at one point, and like all the I mean there's elements of that. There's a Al Pacino, the great Al Pacino's in this movie. I feel like I don't know how much I needed that scene and that character to be there. I didn't feel like it added anything to it. But then the ending for me really worked. And then when you look at the performances, I mean, this is masterclass performances now. I mean, DiCaprio with that little girl. There's a scene.
Absolutely, I agree. I mean, people are saying, Margot Robbie. People are saying that Margot Robbie is not in this a lot. No, she's not in this a lot. No. But for me, there were so many people in this where I'm like, why did you even put this character in it? You arrive, you do a thing, and then they don't really use you in any way, or you're never mentioned again. Yeah. I just felt when it goes to overindulgence, I just think it was creating a tapestry of Hollywood. Not every piece, every thread in that tapestry was needed. I just think it was a little bit overstuffed. There's a lot about this I really like. It's mid-table Tarantino for me. We're saying it's kind of about 5, I think, on the Tarantino scale. It's a 5. But out of the 9 movies he's made. But I mean, I thought Leonardo DiCaprio was great. I thought Brad Pitt was excellent.
Oh, yes.
Margot Robbie is great. She's in it more than I thought she'd be, considering people were saying she wasn't in it a lot, and especially compared to some other people. I agree with you on that violence in the final third, and there'll be no spoilers, but it's a Tarantino movie. It's like Shyamalan. You know there's going to be a twist at the end. That final violence, there were genuinely, I saw it on a Sunday night at a public screening at the Cinerama Dome. There was someone in front of me who was cheering and punching the air when there were scenes of violence that genuinely made me feel uncomfortable. And I don't mind violence in movies. I love a good action movie, and I'm not afraid of gore in a movie at all, but it just didn't sit well with me. As a movie as a whole, I want to see it again, because I think there's a lot in there that now, having seen the full thing, I'm going to pick up on next time. Cinematography is great, some really nice editing touches, but that scene you referenced with Leonardo DiCaprio and a young girl was a great scene, but like so many great scenes in the movie, they just go on for a bit too long. And I think they could trim half an hour out of that movie, and it would improve it by quite some magnitude.
Take out the driving. I mean, there's so many scenes of driving.
Yeah.
Like, it becomes a 1969 music video at points. Like, it's cute the first 2 times, but after a while, it's like, okay, we get it. You love this kind of music. You love this era. Move on to the story.
Yeah. Kurt Russell, I think, was a real standout. You know, there were so many things in this. I mean, the driving for me, there was a lot of driving that didn't need to be in there, but I think the same message and the sort of the optics could have been delivered in a more effective way. There's a lot in the movie to like. I wasn't a fan of the ending. I just wasn't, and I know a lot of people have led this to be like a Charles Manson movie. I think I wouldn't consider this to be a Charles Manson movie.
No.
I really wouldn't consider it to be a Charles Manson movie. But I mean, there's a lot in there to really enjoy. It's a fruit cake with a lot of cherries and raisins and substance to it, but it's also a little bit stodgy.
But you know what the problem is with Tarantino is that for some reason, and I don't know if it's just because of the way that he comes off in all these interviews and stuff, I feel like people are afraid to talk to him and make him edit his movies. You know, like you said, this is a movie where I feel I would call probably a perfect film if they actually tightened up a lot of it.
Yeah,
you know, like
I agree.
where scenes were just cut down and that, you know, I get you're in LA and I get you have to drive everywhere in LA, but you don't need to spend 45 minutes of the film showing Brad Pitt driving around LA. And then there's just some weird lines of dialogue that you don't need to say. There's a scene with Margaret Qualley, I believe her name is, where she gets in the car with Brad Pitt, and they have this weird, awkward, inappropriate conversation where you already get that vibe without them saying anything.
And then it's laid out.
It's laid out.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, Tarantino, I don't need this. I know what she wants to happen.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, Alexander, you finally on this. It's mid-table Tarantino for you, or is it higher or lower?
It's mid-tier for me. I thought Inglourious Bastards was just okay.
Interesting.
And Hateful Eight is kind of the same thing, where it's like, I love the first half, second half is end, the end is just not terrible, but it's just kind of,
So, favorite Tarantino movie? We're going to go down the line. Scott, first of all.
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction for me. But also, I'm a person who didn't hate Hateful Eight. So
Really?
Yeah, I didn't hate it.
Oh.
I thought it was really slow, and again, could have been trim, but didn't hate it. But certainly, for me, it's definitely Pulp Fiction. It's still Reservoir Dogs #2, or tied with Inglourious Bastards. Guys, thank you so much for doing the show this week.
No
Really
problem.
appreciate it. We're going to go down the line. Scott, who are you? Where can we find you, please?
Scott Menzel. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @theotherscottm or over at WeLiveInEntertainment.com.
Alexander Robinson, thank you for being on the show. Your first time here. We really appreciate it.
Thank
Where
you.
can we find you, please?
You can find me on YouTube, The Real Mr. Robinson, Twitter, Real Mr._Robinson, Instagram, The Real Mr. Robinson, and the Stardust app, Real Mr. Robinson.
And if you haven't checked out Alexander's work, please do so. He has a really interesting and unique and very personal voice. It's a voice worth listening to. You are going to do exceptionally well in the future. I really
you.
respect you as a critic. Thank you so much. And if you're in LA this weekend, you're going to need a bigger boat quiz. It's taking place 2 o'clock tomorrow in Los Angeles. It's okay, you can play the music. I'm going to be wrapping up. Feel free. It's $10 a person, and we would love to see you there. It's going to be great. Seriously, a lot of people are surprised. Even I was. Thank you so much. My name is Simon Thompson, at Showbiz Simon on Instagram and Twitter. Really appreciate it. Also, don't forget, I'm going to be on Collider Mailbag tomorrow morning with John Rocha, another member of the LAOFCS.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a great week, everybody. We're looking forward to hearing your thoughts on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on next week's show. Thank you so much. Have a good week.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.